Welcome to The Soul Space, the podcast that inspires you to discover your truth, ignite your passion, and align your life with the power of who you really are. I'm Georgia Rose, psychic astrologer. I share the cosmic roadmap that guided me through astrology, tarot, and inner knowing into authentic living. I'm here to help you decode your soul's cosmic story, reconnect with your passion, and create the life you are meant to live. It all starts within, and it all starts now in the soul space. Hi, everybody. It's Georgia Rose from Zencuda, and we are in the soul space. This is my home studio. I hope you like it. This is my first broadcast from this home studio, and I know that my sound might be a little echoey. My microphone broke, so my beautiful Yeti microphone that I have loved and made hundreds of broadcasts with has gone kaplooey. So I have to purchase a microphone off of probably Amazon this week. So welcome to the Soul Space. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about astrology and also about, are you psychic? Last week we talked about how psychics work, and I let you guys know a few of the tricks of the trade that I have and how I actually opened in my own psychic experience. I'm going to go into that a little bit more this week. However, before I do that, you guys know this is all about astrology. We have to make sure that we are guided by angels while still navigating the cosmos. So we have some pretty interesting energy coming in. Today actually is the 23rd of March, the day that I am taping this show. And actually we have the moon in Gemini today. It's trining Pluto. So that can basically mean that's a little harbinger of the way the Uranus energy is going to go in Gemini, believe it or not. So we're getting a little taste of summer, even though where I live here on the east coast of New York, it's a little rainy today and we have not had spring yet. It's been a little bit cold, hate to say, but unfortunately my crocuses are coming up in my garden and they got a frost the other night. So I hope we still have some beautiful flowers for spring. So yeah, that March 23rd, that moon in Gemini makes us a little scattered at times. So try and focus. I know this morning I had a hard time focusing on some things. And it will also, that will be downplayed in the weeks to come. We will have more Gemini energy, but that moon in Gemini is our emotions, so we can get a little bit of a case of the feels in this. And like I said, this kind of harkens the energy of Uranus when it goes into Gemini, the end of this month in the summertime. And it actually talks to Saturn and the sun when it does that a lot. But right now we've got this conjunction of the moon and Pluto. It's kind of an energy that repeats what happened during the Saturn and Neptune conjunction in the beginning of the month. So we're still with that energy, Neptune dissolving our belief systems and Saturn dissolving our structures and the containers we live in. Why is it doing that? Well, remember, everything in life doesn't happen to us. It happens for us. And so when these things happen, is to clear the air. I look at it as the world is disintegrating right now, but it has to in order for us to be able to integrate all the new energy that's coming in. So 2026 and 2027 are definitely going to be changeable years. Tomorrow, we have the sun in that exact conjunction with Saturn, and it lines up. It's actually exacting on the 24th and 25th. So what you see is what you get. When the sun hits Saturn, it's a reality check. It can be karma, good or bad, coming to you. And it can also be a time of where we metamorphose, a lot of metamorphosis during that time, because Saturn is our discipline and our sense of responsibility. So when the sun hits it, it's going to bring forward the places not only where you need to have a little more responsibility, but also where maybe you were a little caught up in procrastination. So it's going to bring a reality check for you. The sun is also sextiling Pluto. I'm reading off my notes. I'm sorry for not looking at the camera. And that's an opportunity to really go deep into your shadow, the work that you need to do in order to confront things in your life. And that really exacts more like the 25th. But that metamorphosis will continue throughout the week. A lot of things are playing out because we're moving into Pluto going into that 5-degree mark of Aquarius. And I want to talk about that a little bit because that's really the energy of January 2020. We started to go into lockdown. The world really started to change. I remember at that time I kept saying to all my family and friends, this is a new world order. We are starting this construction of a new world order. And boy, in the last few years, we sure have seen that. It's been 6 years since that date when we had the worldwide lockdown. And you can see how different our energy is now and how we do things and approach things in the world is so different. So think about what you've learned. I know during that time I did a couple of blogs. They were kind of my revelations in quarantine. and they really showed the growth that we were all having. But that Saturn Pluto energy, Saturn being in the fifth degrees of Aries and Pluto being in the fifth degrees of Aquarius, we're going to see a lot of that energy in play, because up until July, when we have like 4 or 5 planets in 4 degrees of their signs, a lot of things become configured into that energy. And it really is a look back on that January 2025 time. What was going on in your life? What were your insecurities? How have you made yourself feel more secure and more stable since then? What are the changes that you've made in your life? You're going to find that these things are going to come up in the forefront more and more as this energy starts to make an incline, make a deeper dive into that space until July and August, and then it will dissipate. There's a very important date coming up in July, which I'll talk about in future broadcasts, about when we have all those planets lining up in fifth and 4 degrees of their signs. But for now, look in your chart and see, where is Aquarius energy? Where is Pluto at that fourth, fifth degree of Aquarius? And where is Saturn lining up in Aries for you? What houses of your chart are they happening in? Because that's where you're going to find these revelations and these, kind of awakenings coming in, and it's not easy awakenings. These are things that come to our forefront so that we can actually make change in our life that's very deep change. And this is also a time when we are changing things that are going to be in alignment, and decisions we make now are going to be affecting us and impacting us for the next 30 years. So you really want to think long and hard about what you are doing and what you need to do in your life. Make changes that have really long-term impact. This is fire to air. So this is really about our mental capacity, the things that are liberation and freedom for us, what freedom feels like to us, both mentally and also in our heart space, because we still have Jupiter in Cancer, which just went direct recently. So you want to think about, what does freedom feel like to me? And what is this Saturn? What is the fire energy telling me to birth or move on or ignite? Just like I'm building out this home studio process because I want to be more liberated and independent. I want to have a space where I can go in and just bang out a couple of videos for all of you anytime a spirit moves me, or I have a revelation or something really important to talk about. That's a new beginning. Things like that are going to make a trajectory for the next long term are things you want to think about. You want to think about, where do I need to be more educated? How can I use AI to fulfill my potential without giving up my humanity and my own originality? How can I make achievement something that is really happening and being embodied in my life, rather than just thinking about it or fantasizing about it or imagining it? Because all that energy in Pisces was making us imagine, dream, think about things. Now we want to be in a place where we're not thinking anymore, we're doing. But for the 24th and 25th, that is a big reality check coming in. The moon is definitely giving us kind of a fear of loss or a fear of protection. So it will make you want to kind of go in the shell a little bit, but don't do that. Think about where you really want to move forward, and think about what can I do that'll make a large change in my life that's long lasting. What has been all these past few years, especially the last 6 years, something that has restricted me, and where do I need to really find liberation to open myself up to more freedom? That's really what this is about, us being in more control of those things and us emerging into new spaces. Where do I want to take up space? What does that look like for me? Is it a different type of relationship? Is it a different type of education or career? Is it a different type of belief system that I really want to discover? Maybe you want to take up yoga or a modality that goes against your traditional conditioning. This is the week, this is the time when that starts to really move into play for you. So now let's talk a little bit about, are you psychic? So it's my personal belief that everyone has psychic ability. Everybody can get messages from the other side, from past loved ones. Everyone can be in a space where they suddenly feel really in tune with creator or whatever your higher power is to you, whether that's galactic energy and aliens, or for me, the planets and the cosmos and angels and God. Whatever it is for you that connects you with a higher power, And when you're in those places, whether they come spontaneously, like a very Uranian moment, or whether they come in a time when you are in meditation, in deep contemplation, where and what is the flavor of those messages that you get, the ideas that spring into your head, the things you hear? I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I had a friend of mine come over and do a spiritual meditation type process with me. And she came in and had this beautiful crystal, and she handed it to me. And so she often does that with crystals and things like that because she knows I can connect, and she wants to know what my connection is to it. And oftentimes we compare our connections. And it's very good when you're thinking about, deepening your psychic ability, your connection ability that we all have. It's very good to have a buddy that you can kind of, bounce things off of. So she handed me this beautiful crystal, and immediately I felt the golden light of Christ. And it was very similar to what she had felt, even though we had not discussed it. But as I'm, holding this crystal and I was in the room alone with it, I heard a voice. And not a voice physically in the room. I didn't hear the voice that way. I heard the voice come into my consciousness in my mind. And it wasn't my voice. And the voice said, "No one walks alone." And the day before, I had some health issues, and my partner right now is traveling overseas, and I felt, that loneliness that you feel when you're not feeling well and you're by yourself. And I had some challenges, and here I was just randomly holding this crystal, and a voice came and said, "No one walks alone." That's not a phrase I've ever really maybe said too often. I'm sure I've said it once or twice in my life, but it's not verbiage that I use. I know it came from a higher place. And I want to talk about that because when you start to discover your psychic ability, you discover your wings, as I like to say, sometimes it can be a lonely journey because you're going into places that you alone have to go. You're suddenly receiving messages. You're suddenly seeing signs from past loved ones and interpreting them. And you just have a knowingness. And without having a support system, without having maybe a family who's open to these things or friends or a group, it gets very, very lonely. And I wanted to bring in that energy of no one walks alone into this broadcast today because I think that's something we all really have to tap into because a lot of us feel really alone right now. It's a time when, things are very chaotic. We don't know what's real. We don't know what's true. We don't know what's fake, what's a lie, what's dishonesty, what's, being manipulated with all the technology that we have now. And that can feel really lonely because you don't have a ground. You don't have a foundation. It's very important to have those types of support systems when you are really in your psychic journey, because it can be very, very lonely. The other thing that happens with the loneliness is not everyone always believes you. Sometimes you're on this journey and you are in a space where you are going into a higher consciousness, you're receiving things, you're changing deeply. You're not changing like the outfits you wear or the haircuts or whatever, although it may change too. You're changing deeply within you. And it's really important to have someone, whether it's a mentor, that's on that journey with you, because your friends and family are probably not going to understand that, unless, of course, your friends and family are all very spiritual and on the same journey, which is not likely. So I just wanted to say no one walks alone. Oftentimes I coach people. I do not presently do coaching where I'm doing psychic development coaching. I don't do that right now because it really is a very large commitment. I'm not available. But I do coaching for mindset. So if you're in that kind of journey and you need to talk to somebody about how do I handle something, that I can do. You can go on zenkuda.com. I can also give you a reading. A lot of times when you're on that spiritual journey and you're learning that you are tapping into your psychic ability and your psychic understanding of things, many times what will happen is you will find that you need to just talk sometimes. You need to just find something deeper. Why is these things happening for me? And sometimes the astrology chart can really, really pinpoint exactly what your gifts are and the deeper meaning behind them. Let's say it that way. Okay. So getting an astrology reading when you're in that time frame of your life and really thinking about your deep psychic journey can really, really help. So one of the things that is really important when you are on this journey is you have to ground. Every time you go into a meditation, every time you do anything, you really have to ground, and you have to be in a place where you are have an inner stability before you go into a meditation or before you go into any kind of spiritual work. The reason for that is because many times we will get carried away. When I first started to really go on my psychic journey, I would meditate, and I'd have to set a timer because I would meditate for like 3 or 4 hours at a time and not realize it. You can really get carried away, especially if you are in an energy that is something you love, right? Like I used to love when I would feel my angels around me. So sometimes I would want to stay in that energy for a very, very long time. And that's really not what you want to do. So make sure that you are grounded and that you are in a place of, deep inner stability is really the only word that I can use for it, that inner stability, because you want to make sure that you're definitely at a place where you're not getting so carried away, you're not getting overindulgent in the practice, because that can really, really happen. When it's new, we love it, we want to do more of it, and that definitely can be something where you are just loving it so much you don't want to come out of it. I remember when I first was learning how to read tarot, I would really love to read, and I would just read everybody, my family, my friends. I'd be like, "Come on over, I'll give you a reading," and I get burnt out. So you want to temper yourself. So how do you know if you're psychic or not? Well, everybody's psychic. Newsflash there. I know a lot of people who are heavily into ego would like to think that they have this beautiful gift where they're the only ones who are, have this ability. And while it is a beautiful gift, and I do feel very fortunate to have it, it's not that you're just boom, born and you have this. Yes, I was psychic as a child. I did not know what it was. I thought it was anxiety. It was labeled that by my elders. And I would not go in certain rooms of our home because I felt presence there. And I would be afraid, and I would call it monsters because that's what people told me to call them, right? We watch TV at that age and you do certain things and you're like, okay, well, this must be a bad energy, right? So don't label anything negative. Explore it with grounding and with light. When we are first getting our psychic power up, a lot of times it will happen when we're in tragedy or something. It will happen when we are in a place of challenge, grief, and all of a sudden our minds and hearts will open up. Why is that? Because we need God. We need a higher power. And so the psychic ability will come. Oftentimes I see people and they say, since my mother died, I'm really starting to believe. I'm seeing signs that I just can't really explain. That's very, very common because you're more open to it. You want to receive something from a different portal, from a different place. And so your psychic ability will become really heightened because you are open. You're open to it. You're thinking about it. It's on your mind. And so it's easier to come in. Many times people will also say the opposite, and that someone's recently died and they just can't feel them or they can't understand why they haven't given them a message. A lot of times it's because we're chasing it. We want it so badly that we try to make it happen, and that's not going to happen that way. Usually when we go into a time period where we're in grief, many times we can't feel things because we are blocking it ourselves, So for me, the way that I knew I definitely had a gift and that I was opening to this gift, a gift that we all have, but we all work with different ways. Some people are blocked. They really can't allow messages to come through. Usually it's because of fear or something. Like I know if I really opened to it and worked on it, I could see spirit, physically in form. I don't want that. It would be unnerving for me. Other people would love to see that. I just don't want that. So I don't have that ability. I see them in my mind's eye. I see them. I can tell you what your loved one looked like without knowing them. I can tell them a lot of things, but I don't want to see them physically in the room. And so I put that out. I don't want to be too distracted. I've seen people who start to open psychically and go into everything so deeply that now they're having visions all the time and they can't even function. You don't want to do that. This is not a toy. It's not energy to be squandered or to be um, overindulged in. It's a privilege. It is a very sacred space when you start to open. So for me, the way it first started was the first voice I ever heard was my father, who is not on this earth, and very distinctly, like in the room. And I was like, okay, that happened. And then that was the first time I ever heard a voice in the room with me. It was, I was in very deep despair and I was questioning something in my life. And I distinctly heard my father's voice tell me in one sentence exactly what was going to occur. And he did it in a harsh way, which would have been his style on earth. And I knew that it was real because I knew that it was what was going to happen once it was said. It was something I could not go to. And that was my first experience with that. When I started to open psychically, it was because I was doing yoga every day. I was meditating every day. I was reading about angels. I was very curious. I had gone for readings because I had several people die in a very quick succession, and I had gone to psychics. And one psychic saw my parents standing behind me, and he said to me, "You can do this. You definitely have this gift," which I believe everyone does. And I think he was supposed to say that to me so that I would pursue it. And so I did. And the way I did was, again, with angels. Angels were very safe feeling for me, very protective for me. First time I ever had a spirit communication where someone came to me from the other side. I was in a meditation circle, a Reiki meditation circle at a spiritual place of like it was a crystal shop, and sitting in this circle, not thinking anything. I mean, I didn't think I was going to have communication or anything like that. I just went for the Reiki and the meditation, and there was a girl sitting across from me directly in my line of vision, and all of a sudden her sister came in and started giving me all these messages for her, and I almost didn't know what it was, and then I realized what it was, and I kept staring at the girl, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like really happening, without verbalizing anything. No one knew. And then when the circle was over and everyone was like, kind of getting up, I just started spewing everything that her sister had just told me out. And it was like, do you have a sister? Is her name this? She looks just like you, except her hair's blonde and curly. Like everything just came out. And it was just all at once. And it was so odd because most people in their spiritual opening, that will not happen to. Maybe they'll start to get names or start to understand signs, or they'll read and start to get really, really good psychic hits. But for me, it was just like, went from 0 to like 280 miles an hour. I can't tell you why, except that I believe that it's just heightened in my DNA, in my chart, in my life. And when I do really tap in and do the work to tap in, I can get some very clear messages. I don't do that all the time. Walking around daily, I'm not walking into a deli and saying, hey, I would never do that. I think that's very irreverent, and I think it's very intrusive. That's not what messages are about. When I deliver messages, they're for healing. So always maintain your integrity that way. So for me, I didn't have to struggle to learn to read, or I just haven't had a knowingness very quickly. Most of the time, I will tell you that is very rare. To answer the question, are you psychic? It may take a lot of work, a lot of inner development, where you're doing exercises to open the mental channels, open the emotional channels, open the spiritual channels. You're doing messages and you're doing exercises and all kinds of things that are designed to put you in a place of connection with other realms, other energies. Things like you will maybe meet other psychic people or go to meditations. And when you're in meditation, allow yourself to completely relax and just say, Spirit, what do I need to know? I begin every day of my life by opening my eyes and saying, Spirit, show me what I'm meant to see. Let me hear what I'm meant to hear, and let me know what I'm supposed to know. I say that every morning while I'm still laying in bed, because then my energy is pure and it's in love. I know what's going to be brought to me is loving. I know what's going to be brought to me for others is loving. The way to tell if something is your intuition, that you are clouding it and it's not, is your intuition will always come from a place of love. Your intuition and your inner voice and your psychic ability will always be usually very positive. Now, I'm not saying that you won't get things of an oncoming tragedy or a loss or something that is sad and is a loss. But it will come in a gentle, more loving way of protection. It won't come like a voice is not going to say you're going to die tomorrow. Like that is not the other side. That is your own ego or your own fear or something coming in. You'll hear things like, you need to call so and so to be careful, and then you'll go into it further and you'll find out what is the issue, and you'll ask your angels, your spirits, your guides. Saint Germain is my main guide. He's one of my main guides. And I oftentimes, when I'm troubled or when I'm not getting a message clearly, I'll say, Saint Germain, can you please, let me know what this is? Can you contact me? So if you are trying to pursue your own psychic ability, ask something of the light, whether that is a passed over loved one that you feel is very pure of heart, or another angel type of energy, or God, or whoever, a saint, a certain guides, like we all have ascended master guides. Be best friends with them. And in your moments when you're quiet and you're in stillness and you're reverent and you're in gratitude, always be grateful for every message and every communication that comes. But in those moments when you are in connection, like I like to call it, talk to them like they're your friend. Nothing is going to be there to hurt you if you have your guides from the light, and it's different for everyone, and they will come. Don't have any preconceived notions. If you grew up Catholic and you're like, I want Jesus to be my guide, well, that may or may not be. I know Jesus walks with me quite a lot. I call him JC. He's in my house a lot. I'm like, hey, JC, what's happening? That's the relationship I have. Other people would have a different relationship. I have a relationship with a lot of angels. I studied angels for 2 years. I can tell you mostly everything about the hierarchy and the archangels and how they are. When I do healing work and I do Reiki, I work very much in the angelic realm. And so I call in Archangel Raphael, the green light of healing, Ariel and her pink light for sustainability, Archangel Michael and his beautiful blue cobalt light for protection. You get to know these things, and then it heightens your psychic ability because you know what energy to go for. You know what energy should be for certain requests. Angels will not come unless you request them, though. Angels are always on standby, so you have to ask angels to come in if those are your guides. If you are trying to develop your psychic ability and trying to discern, is this real or is it not real? You will have physical feeling. For me, my solar plexus and my heart is very much in tune with connection. And so I know my knowingness has a center where I can really feel if something is true, if something is accurate. I can feel it. I will know. It's hard to explain. It's going to be different for everyone, but there's a solidness in it. When it's wishy-washy, I know this may or may not be true. This may be something I'm coloring. Certain things we want to happen. For those of us who, I remember when I was single, those who are single, I'm not, but for those of us who are, I remember I would always think this was the guy or something was coming in. And it was because I colored it. I wanted something, so I was trying to, find it. And that will happen a lot in tarot. And that's why if you're using tarot as your psychic opening, I do not read myself. I try, sometimes I'll toss cards for something, but I always go to somebody to read me because you are going to totally color it in your own wants, and your ego is going to fill in the blanks for someplace that your intuition won't. So, that's how you know. If every time you pull cards, it's for that. Oh, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. And it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, but you're like using this as a bargaining tool. That's not psychic ability. That's just bargaining. One way also to tell if a message is real is keep a diary and a log. Like I used to keep a log of my dreams. I used to keep a log of my meditations, and I would know which ones came to fruition and which one didn't. And I would kind of know conversely through conversion rate, kind of like some very statistical, how many of my dreams came true or how many of the things and meditations that I saw. And I would write down everything. Like if when I first was beginning, in meditation, like I just see a horse gallop by and back, I saw a horse today, and get so excited about it because it was just so beautifully, unbelievably like astounding to me that I saw a horse and it trounced me. I know it sounds funny, but that's the way it works when you are doing your development in stages. And then, of course, like now when I meditate, I see movies, I see the whole thing. But in the beginning, it'll be a still picture to see someone's face. Funny story when about discernment. When I first was opening and meditating, I kept seeing this guy's face, and he was really beautiful and in a very Jesus-like way. And I knew it wasn't Jesus, and so I'm like, this is the guy I'm going to meet. I don't know where he is, but this guy. Every meditation, I was seeing this guy and seeing this guy, and so I told myself, this is guy. I'm going to meet this guy. And so every time I went out, I would like look around the room, and so I went to this psychic reader. Her name is April. She's from Babylon, New York. I don't think she's still reading. She's wonderful. I haven't been to her in probably 15 years, but in the beginning of my journey, I went a few times to her, and she was doing a reading for me, and she said, "Oh my God, you have a main guide. You have a very important guide." And I said, "Oh, really? Like, who's my guide?" And she goes, "Saint Germain." And I'm like, "Who's Saint Germain?" Never heard of it before in my life. And she brought the picture of him. And it was the guy I kept seeing in my meditation. I'm like, oh, I guess I'm not going to be dating him. In a way, I do date him because he's my guide. But like, I should call it that. I should, Saint Germain, we have a date later and have him come in. But it's just funny that, our intuition is there. It's showing us stuff, but we're going to color it in the beginning. It's hard to discern because we think it means something it doesn't mean because we're bargaining with it. So if you are in the beginning of your psychic journey, be careful for the bargaining. Other things that are very important during your psychic development, and are you psychic, is to get into groups. Go for readings because that's going to help you understand how readers read. And also ask them, would you mentor me? Would you tell me some things? What was your story? Would you have a cup of coffee with me? It's very important to hear other people's stories of how they open psychically. And also what I'm going to say is don't be afraid. Sometimes other people, for me, my opening was not easy, but it was beautiful. I had many things happen to me that were extremely cathartic and a catalyst for my growth spiritually. I don't think they could have happened earlier in my life at the time because I wouldn't have really understood. I would have been frightened by it. But when things started to happen in very quick succession, like what I just described happened during that Reiki meditation circle with the communication that came, if that had happened even 2 or 3 years earlier, I would have been really frightened by it because I wouldn't have understood it. So make sure that you're on a place in your journey where you're not getting frightened by the spirit communications that come in. You're not in a place of, I'm scared of this, because that's number one, going to block it. Number two, going to bring in energy that you are frightened of because you're really calling it in when you do that. When fear will call in things, right? And so you want to make sure that you're really coming from a place of love and a place of divine guidance to your deepest empathic, compassionate, empathy place. Your soft, gooey core is where you're reading from. Because when we read from a place of fear, or we read from a place that is not as dynamic as that, not as open and filled with divine love as that, what will happen is your readings will be tainted. And they'll be tainted sometimes with not such great stuff. Many of us, I'm sure out there, have gone to readers that are just negative. And they shouldn't be reading. They're not in the right place. And they're fearful. And that's why that's coming out. So you cannot approach a reading with fear. If you are starting to do reading or any kind of psychic work, have a ritual that you do before every event, every reading, even if it's just one person. Every time I go into an astrology reading, there is a ritual that I do, not out of fear of that I need protection. It's to bring in the light more deeply and more brightly so that I am in peak performance for the gifts that I am bringing through. And yes, I do that with astrology readings because don't forget, I read charts psychically. So I need to be open and be a clear channel for that psychic energy that's coming through during an astrology reading. And I'm going into people's soul contracts and soulful energy. So I want to make sure that I am bringing them the best possible read, the best possible intuitive, benevolent, and beautiful message. Many times when we have heightened psychic ability and it needs to be opened or spirit wants us to open it more, what will happen is you will start to have different energy around you. And what I mean by that is many things can happen when you're really, the energy is starting to come in for you. You'll blow out light bulbs a lot. Your computer things and electronics will be glitchy. It's the energy. I know it sounds fluky, like something out of a silly movie, but that will happen. Um, you will also just suddenly, be doing something and get a lot of deja vu feelings because you have been there before. Like I said in last week's broadcast, time is not linear. It's happening all at once. So when you are in a place of feeling that deja vu feeling, you're remembering things. Things are happening that bring you to a place of complete and total, like, yes, I have been here before and I know this energy. I just know it. I feel it. You'll feel that sometimes as you meet new people and they'll be, uh, you know, familiar to you. Like there's people in my life now that like, I just know I've had past lives come. My brother's first wife. I mean, they've been divorced probably almost 40 years. And she's still like, when I see her, she's my sister. I just know she's my sister. It's just a feeling. There are certain friends I have. My friend Deirdre, who is also an astrologer, Dee and I are definitely family from somewhere. So you'll get that more and more as you're opening because it's just you're in tune to it. There are psychic exercises that you can do. Um, you know, things like, I'm trying to think of an example, things like when you are doing angel cards or any kind of oracle cards, shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. And when you're familiar with the deck, try and read what the first card you're going to pick is going to be. In the beginning, it will be hard. Your fallout rate will be high. You won't get a lot. And then as you keep doing it, you're going to start feeling it. When you shuffle the cards, you'll feel heat. You'll feel cold. Your finger will just go over a card and you'll know, oh, this is the card. There's all different kinds of ways that you'll feel it. Pendulums also. You'll start to connect with a pendulum. Get yourself a beautiful pendulum. I have one that is unbelievable. It's a crystal cross, and I never bring it out of my home. It's a pendulum that's very sacred, and I can use that to discern and divine things. So there are all kinds of tools you can use to help your psychic energy and open. But oracle cards are really cool because they're physical and you can play with them. And the more you use them, the more they'll have your energy in them. They'll be your deck. That's why, you really shouldn't loan out your cards and things like that, talismans and things. Also, one of the things that's very important is talisman. So you'll see I wear this Maltese cross a lot. I also have a Maltese cross tattooed on my body. The reason for it is it was a victory. It's a victory symbol. I survived cancer. I survived great loss in my life and lived to tell about it. And now my life is dedicated to those experiences in a way that can help others. When you've walked through fire that you have to tell people how to do it because you want to protect and be the salvation for someone else, because there were people who were that for me, and you pay it forward. So for my talisman is a Maltese cross, and also fleur-de-lis are extremely sacred to me and a portal opening for me because Saint Germain's symbol is the fleur-de-lis. Fleur-de-lis have been a symbol for me since I'm a child. I didn't know that it was a connection to Saint Germain. But when you walk in the front door of my home, I had someone come in and hand carve special lentils in the door frame that are fleur-de-lis. The fleur-de-lis is a symbol of feminine power. It is a symbol of the Trinity, the Holy Spirit, Son, Father, and Ghost, and Son, Father, and Spirit. And the trefoil or fleur-de-lis has a band around those three things. That band is the Blessed Mother. It is feminine energy because without feminine energy, none of those three male figures, male energies, masculine energies could exist. You need male and female. So the trefoil, the fleur-de-lis, is a very, very sacred symbol. And anytime you see pictures of Saint Germain or you see anything of Saint Germain, the trefoil, he's wearing one, or there's one somewhere in the photo, the fleur-de-lis, it's a French symbol of victory, of love. So those are things that are very symbolic to me and are very much my talismans. The reason why I bring that up, and I'm kind of going on a tangent about this, is because you must have a talisman that is yours, something you wear or hold or that is with you all times, that your sacred energy is in, that is not only your protection, but is your divine connection to the energy that is you. Now, for some people, that will be total unconditional love. For others, it will be compassion. For others, it will be valor and bravery. Whatever your essence energy is going to be different for everyone. I'm not going to say what my essence is. I protect it, but there's an essence that comes to you that is your spiritual fire of very distinct energy when you are bringing psychic ability out in you. And I know that that's hard for many people to understand what I'm saying right now. The people who are understanding are the people who have walked that walk. And there are a lot of people out here listening right now that are on either the verge of walking that walk, or they will walk that walk one day, and these words will come back to them. You must have a talisman that holds your essence and your energy. Because what happens is when you go into spiritual connection, that amplifies your being and your essence. So always have your talismans and protect them. Many people also have talismans that bring them into past relatives. Like I'm a third generation tarot reader. My aunt and my grandfather all read tarot. My grandfather read Tarocchi in Italy. And so I carry that lineage. So my talismans are going to also be programmed to carry my lineage. And these are all things about, are you psychic? And these are all things that you will come to discern and you will come to do when you are working in and opening your psychic ability. So that's my spiel about, are you psychic? And you can always put stuff in the comments on my Zenkuda YouTube channel where we'll be putting this video. If you have anything specific you want me to answer, you can also email me at connect@zenkuda.com. Zenkuda is Zencuda. And you can always book a reading with me privately at zenkuda.com. There's just a couple of more things I want to talk about with the astrology. And that is that we have 5 planets in Aries right now. We're on our way to having 7 planets in Aries before the month is up through April, before the month of April is up. So right now we have Chiron, Venus, Saturn, the Sun, and Neptune all in Aries energy. That is fire. It is new emerging energy. This is the one question you must ask yourself. Well, I'll say 2 questions you must ask yourself. Well, we're on our way to get the 7 planets in Aries, because by April we're going to have Mars and Mercury in there. So it is going to be a powerhouse. Never has there ever been that many planets in Aries at any one time that anyone can remember. So use that energy well. I'll talk about in the next podcast what Aries energy is all about. But it means light your fire. Do the things you've been procrastinating. Get your stuff together. And here's the 2 questions that you want to ask to really align with that energy. What does freedom look like for me? And where do I want to take up space? It's all about new emerging energy. So I will see you next week on the Soul Space podcast. And I promise I won't be as echoey as I have been today. But my microphone broke, so we'll have a new one in a little bit. And I love you all, sending you beautiful blessings for this week. And definitely step into your fire, because Aries is pushing you there, whether you like it or not. For a private reading, go to zenkuda.com. I am Georgia Rose, your psychic astrologer. See you next week, Monday night live. Bye-bye.